Well, hello there. Welcome back to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. Well, I'm excited to continue our Taste of Directors series. In this series of videos, what we do is we choose a specific director, and we'll select 3 to 4 films from that director's filmography to give you a taste of what that director has done and what they've contributed to the world of cinema. Now, as I've said before, selecting 3 to 4 films might not give you the full depth and breadth of a director's work, but it at least gives you an idea and a taste of what that director has done and what they've contributed to the world of cinema and to the art of making movies. So with this edition of Taste of Directors series, I'm very excited to present a director that I'm going to admit up front, I am still exploring myself. I'm just recently getting into this director's films. And so for me, this is a moment of discovery as I've been diving into this director's films, and I'm still learning. So I'm looking forward to hearing in the comment section your thoughts on this particular director. And this director is none other than Russian film director Andrei Tarkovsky. So I know a lot of you out there in the film community are probably big fans of Andrei Tarkovsky's works. You're experts in his films, and you know a whole lot more than I do. I'm at that phase where I'm still examining his works and trying to really understand and better comprehend what I've seen. So I've seen a number of his films. I'll talk about some of the ones that I've seen in today's Taste Director series, but I'm really looking to hear from you all about what you think about Tarkovsky's films and what your favorite films are from Andrei Tarkovsky, as well as what you feel the overall message is and what he's trying to communicate in his films. Because I'll be honest with you, I think his films are absolutely wonderful works of art. That is probably the best way I could describe his films, is that his films to me are like a painting. They're like a work of art, more so than a cinematic experience. They are a cinematic experience, but they're really expressions of a moving painting or a moving piece of art that you need to interpret and bring your own interpretation of what's going on or what the artist or the painter is trying to say. So that's sort of how I see Tarkovsky's films, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you think about Andrei Tarkovsky in this Taste of Director series videos. All right, so a little bit about the director. Russian director and screenwriter Andrei Tarkovsky was born in April 1932 in Zaporozhye, Russia, to the poet and translator Arseny Tarkovsky, who is a native of Yelisavetgrad, and Maria Ivanovich Yanakova, a graduate of the Maxim Gorky Literature Institute. Tarkovsky spent his childhood in Urevets, and he studied music and Arabic in Moscow before enrolling in the Soviet State Institute of Cinematography, VGIK. So Andrei Tarkovsky directed 7 feature films in his career, the first 5 of which were in Russia, starting with Ivan's childhood in the early 1960s, and his final 2 films were directed in Italy and Sweden in the 1980s. His films are known for being meditative and slow-paced and thought-provoking, and are really open to interpretation, the kind of films that leave you thinking about the meaning of the film and what it is communicating. They're very dreamlike, and they have interesting visuals and landscapes, and they touch on various metaphysical and religious themes. So Andrei Tarkovsky died in Paris in 1986 at the relatively young age of 54, having directed only 7 feature films in his career. But of those 7 films, 3 of those films are critically acclaimed as being 3 of the greatest films of all time, such as Andrei Rublev, Mirror, and Stalker. So Andrei Rublev, even though his filmography is relatively short, his work is very, very highly critically acclaimed, and he is a director that is prominently featured in the Criterion Collection. And I'll talk about a number of titles from this director that you might consider for this upcoming November Criterion Collection sale. So like I said before, I am very new to Andrei Tarkovsky. I've just gotten into his work. I find him to be a very fascinating director in that I can appreciate films that make me think, and films that don't just simply dole out, the narrative in a simplistic way, but give you something to think about, something to interpret, and in many cases leaves the interpretation open to the viewer, that you could really take it in any number of different directions. And I think one of the fun parts of watching a Tarkovsky film is afterwards sort of reading about the film and reading what different critics have said about it and what different critics interpret the meaning of the film. And you'll find if you read about 2 to 3 different editorials on any given Tarkovsky film, you're going to get 2 to 3 different perspectives on what the film means and what the film is communicating to the viewer. So I think that's one of the fun parts of watching Tarkovsky's films. So the 4 films that I'm going to feature in this Taste of Tarkovsky films are 4 films that are heavily featured in the Criterion Collection. One of them is being shown up here, Solaris. And the first film is Andrei Rublev. This is his film from 1966. I'll talk a little bit about Solaris, which is being projected up here. This is his science fiction film from 1972. Here we have Mirror, which is one of my absolute favorite editions from the Criterion Collection of all editions released in 2021. This is his 1975 film, 1975 masterpiece, Mirror. And then the last one I'll talk about is his film from 1979. I think it might be one of, if not his final film in Russia, and it's 1979 Stalker. So these are the 4 titles that I'm going to cover in this Taste of Tarkovsky, starting off with Andrei Rublev. Now, Andrei Rublev is a film from 1966. It's set in medieval Russia. Andrei Rublev is the second feature film from Andrei Tarkovsky, following up from his highly critically acclaimed feature film debut of Ivan's Childhood. So this film is from 1966 and is set in medieval Russia, and it's about the life of 15th century Russian painter Andrei Rublev. And in this film, Anatoly Solzhenitsyn plays Andrei Rublev. And this is a fantastic edition from the Criterion Collection. It's a nice little digipack. It's a 2 Blu-ray special edition that has a number of just awesome special features, which to me, that's one thing I found very beneficial about learning more about Andrei Tarkovsky, is just going through those special features and learning a little bit more about this director. Particularly the features on the Mirror edition from Criterion were very instructive for me in better understanding Tarkovsky and his work. So I continue that as I go through Andrei Rublev. Just a fantastic example of Andrei Tarkovsky's work. This film was in black and white, and it comes in at 183 minutes, and it's just a fantastic film with wonderful, interesting visuals and just a great story. Andrei Rublev. The next film that I'll talk about for Andrei Tarkovsky is a science fiction type film from 1972, and it is Andrei Tarkovsky's Solaris. Now, this is a film from 1972. It's his brilliant sci-fi epic. It's based on the 1961 novel by Stanislaw Lem of the same name. So this film stars Donatas Banionis as psychologist Chris Kelvin. He's sent on an interstellar mission to a space station orbiting the oceanic planet Solaris to investigate strange occurrences that are happening to the crew members. This is a really fascinating, interesting, meditative work from Andrei Tarkovsky. And what I just said could be applied to pretty much every film from Andrei Tarkovsky. They're all meditative, they're all thought-provoking, they're all dreamlike. That's part of the magic of Tarkovsky's films, is making you really think about, are you watching things in real time? Are you watching reality? Or are you watching a flashback, a hallucination, a dream? That's part of the beauty of Tarkovsky's works, and that is on full display here in Solaris. And this is a really interesting film that I'm still digesting and absorbing myself. So let me know in the comments below what you think of Solaris, but this is his 1972 sci-fi epic from Andrei Tarkovsky. Now the next film, as I mentioned, is a film and an edition that's one of my favorite Criterion Collection editions from this year so far. I think it's one of the best releases that Criterion has put out this year, and it is Andrei Tarkovsky's Mirror. This is the film from 1975. It comes in at 106 minutes, comes in this wonderful, beautiful digipack edition. And this is one heck of an edition from the Criterion Collection. Basically, this is the 1975 autobiographical personal film from Andrei Tarkovsky. And this film stars Margarita Tereshkova as the mother and ex-wife of Natalia. You've got Oleg Yankovsky as the father. You've got Philippe Yankovsky as 5-year-old Alexei. And you've got Ignat Danetlev as 12-year-old Alexei. So this is 1975, you have a man in his 40s living in Russia. He's dying of an unknown malady, and he's recalling moments from his life, including his childhood before World War II, his experiences fighting in the war, and his post-war life, including marriage, fatherhood, and divorce. So this is a fascinating film that's about a man living in 1975, and he's recalling his life over the past 30 years, and he's having dreams and hallucinations of his past experiences. And this is just an entrancing film to watch. It is hypnotic, it is meditative, it is just a deeply moving and fascinating experience. As I said up front in the review, this is not a film for everybody. This is more of an artistic film, as are many of Tarkovsky's works. And it's a film that's very meditative in nature. It's not a film that follows a typical narrative structure of beginning, middle, and end, and here's the objectives of the characters and what they're trying to do, and here's the plot. This film doesn't play out that way. So if you're more into the traditional narrative approach of films, this is probably not a film for you. But if you're interested in a film that is very artful and makes you think and makes you want to interpret the meaning of the film and what you're looking at, and watching dream-like sequences and hallucination sequences, this is a great film for that. So if you're into the art side of things or having an interest in that, I would highly recommend checking out Mirror. So this is 1975's Mirror from Andrei Tarkovsky. Great film. And then the last film that I'll feature in this Taste of Directors series for Tarkovsky is his film from 1979. And I believe this is his last film that he made in Russia. And this is Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker. So this is a film from 1979. And yes, I just read on the back here that this is his final Soviet feature. And it's a metaphysical journey through an enigmatic post-apocalyptic landscape. And that's basically what this film is about. You have Alexander Kadonovsky, he plays a stalker. He is leading a doctor and a professor through this area called the Zone, which is this post-apocalyptic area where strange things happen. And in this area, there's a room that apparently grants people's dreams. You also have Elisa Fredendik. She plays Zina Stalker, his wife. You have Anatoly Solonitsyn. He plays Pisatel, the writer. And you also have Nikolai Grinko, who plays a professor in this film. So in this film, Stalker, you see these three men go through this post-apocalyptic world. One very interesting note about this film, Stalker, is its visual style. It switches between a monochromatic type look where everything looks this one like brownish type color, and then it'll switch to the full color palette, and it'll switch back and forth between those looks as part of his visual style. It's a very striking film to see, and this Criterion Collection edition features a 2K digital restoration that I think does a beautiful job of realizing the look of this film. It looks absolutely fantastic on this Blu-ray, and this is a wonderful addition from the Criterion Collection. This is a very interesting, fascinating, and meditative film from Andrei Tarkovsky that will make you think all the way through to the end. This is a film from Andrei Tarkovsky that I've recently seen, and it is a film that definitely makes you think, and I'm still interpreting and understanding the meaning of it, and I'm still reading about different people's interpretations of what the film means and what the director is communicating in this film. It's a very fascinating watch that I highly recommend. It's 1979 Stalker from Andrei Tarkovsky. It's his last work in the Soviet Union before he did his final two feature films in Italy and Sweden. So Stalker from 1979. So great film from Tarkovsky. And overall, these are four really nice films from this director. You've got 1966's Andrei Rublev, you've got Solaris from 1972, Mirror from 1975, and Stalker from 1979. These are four excellent features from director Andrei Tarkovsky. And as I said before, I am still processing these films and really just seeking to better understand and comprehend what his message is in these films. They're very meditative, they're dreamlike, they just make you think. So in terms of who I would recommend these films for, I would recommend these films from Andrei Tarkovsky and Tarkovsky's work to people who are into the art side of cinema. If you're into artsy type films, if you're into films that are contemplative and meditative and make you think and really make you really dig for the deeper meaning that the director's going for, these films are very much up that alley. If you're the type of person that's more into a straightforward narrative and plot structure, and you need to understand beginning, middle, and end, the traditional three-part structure of filmmaking and storytelling, then these films might not be for you. You know, if you like a more straightforward narrative, these are probably not films for you. But if you're more into art films or you have an appreciation for art films, I would definitely recommend these 4 films from Andrei Tarkovsky. They are absolute masterworks. Each of these films are highly critically acclaimed and highly recommended. So it all comes down to the type of film lover that you are. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think about these films? What do you think about Andrei Tarkovsky's work in general? What are your comments on each of these films that I've mentioned here today? And let me know if you plan on picking up any of these titles for this November Barnes & Noble Criterion Collection sale. Again, I'm looking forward to hearing the comments from you because I'm still learning Tarkovsky myself. I am by no means an expert on this director's work. I am literally a babe learning about Andrei Tarkovsky. So I am still pondering what Andrei Rublev is saying and what Solaris is communicating and what the meaning of mirror is and what the meaning of Stalker is. So I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below, and also your level of interest in Tarkovsky's films and if you plan to pick up any of these titles in the Criterion Collection sale. So with that, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Happy Criterion Collection shopping, and we'll see you next time. Peace.